My name is Jack Rome, and on behalf of the Center for Awakening, I'm glad to welcome you to Meet the Speaker, a live series with speakers from the upcoming 3-day online immersive conference, Awake in Stillness, The End of Dreaming, taking place from November 8th to 10th. This series is designed to give you a brief taste of the direct experience that you can expect from each session during the conference. Bill Free is the founder of Pure Presence Productions, a conference platform for thought leaders, wisdom teachers, and facilitators from non duality, science, and philosophy to promote the expansion, understanding, and direct experience of awareness for beings around the world to awaken to their true identity. Bill offers retreats, self inquiry guided meditations, book studies, masterclass retreats, and workshops to help others discover realized awareness for themselves. Bill invites us to recognize that stillness is, and we cease to speak.
The Awake in Stillness title is it's exactly what awakening requires in order to realize the self, in order for enlightenment to take place or awakening to happen. It happens in the stillness. And this conference that we're sharing with the world for free is really pointed and geared at helping many people, whoever you are, whoever they are, to invite the direct experience of awakening or a glimpse of awakening or even a taste of what the meaning is from one of these. We have over 27 speakers for this conference. This is our largest conference, our ninth one in 5 years. And there's just a real pull and an inspiration for me to have a platform, to have a venue where anyone with a device can log on, and hopefully you'll really give yourself the gift of a quiet place, a single pointed focus and attention, set away the distractions from what might grab your attention, and really give yourself the invitation to hear something that might stir your own awakening experience, that might cause you to be curious or to self-inquire. Excuse me. Or to self-inquire your true nature. And I'll give you a sense of what some of these sessions will be about. Some will be monologue. We have amazing teachers, some of the greatest non-dual and progressive path teachers of Advaita, and we have Swami from the Advaita Society in New York City. He'll be having a conversation with Rupert Spira. We have many teachers that will bring you to the experience of self-inquiry, meditation, contemplation, all of these things. And what I'm going to just share with you right now, if you're able to just give your attention to this experience right now, no matter where you are in the world, if you're in Europe, if you're in South America, if you're in Asia, if you're in Australia, it doesn't matter. If you're in the United States, for sure, this matters. We're in our election cycle right now for 2024, and many of us are nervous about who is going to be elected as president of the United States. And Europe is very concerned because the president, the next president, really does matter in relationship to the conflicts that we have in these different regions around the world. And although this is a spiritual conference and this is a spiritual communicate right here. We live in the world. In these body mind, these body suits, we live in a world, in the world that seems very real, and it has a relative effect on our own experience. So if you are scared about this election that's happening right now, it's next week we're going to vote on who the president is, and it will determine the direction of the United States, which is a world leader in what happens around the world. So if you're scared about this election and whether or not your candidate will win, and you feel that you'll be more safe, more secure in that in that selection, that person being voted for and elected president. If you have anxiety over the election, if you're like, I don't know what to do, this election is being brought to you as a way of awakening. And all things that are disturbing your peace, that are triggers for your emotions, that cause you to feel like you're helpless, or and life is hopeless. These are all triggers for you to go deeper in your own awakening. And I'll give you for instance, and a practice that we can have right now. If you notice anxiety over the election, if you have fear around the election, if you have a preference, if you just know, oh my God, what am I going to do if he wins? Ah, or what am I going to do if she wins? Ah, because we're on both people are on both sides of the fence. And I'm not going to say who my pick is here, because this is for your healing experience. So whatever that fear or worry, anxiety is, set aside just for a moment, just set aside the election, and be grateful it brought that to you, because it's an emotion that you have buried in the unconscious mind, that's buried in the vault, that you don't have access to. You just know that it comes out when these situations happen, and then it goes back and hides again, and then it comes out again on a different issue. This issue might be the election. Set the election aside. And now, as awakening awareness, as consciousness itself, as awareness, the awareness that you are, now take that energy of fear, anxiety, worry, and angst and preferences, bring that in, and love it. Love this is like having a small child that's scared, and you're saying, "Oh, honey, come, mommy is here, or daddy is right here," and that will gently bring that little one out of its nightmare, it back into the bosom of its seeming source. And in this case, you are the source of all things. You are what God is. You are the image and the likeness of God, as pure awareness, pure presence. And you're welcoming that energy, that fear, anxiety, worry, and or maybe even grievances. You're welcoming that energy back into itself as itself, and you're allowing it to be dissolved into the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural state. And this is one way to heal the mind that thinks that it's separate, that that knows that it's not. And this is a way of healing that mind from the seeming sense of separation. And it will also heal the fear, the anxiety, the worry, so that then you come out of that experience. And whoever is elected, you'll be able to have peace of mind, and not be guided by worry or fear, and not be guided by who you think should have won, because that healing effect, it works. It happens every time. And these are the kinds of teachings. These are the kinds of sessions that you'll find at this conference, because I invited all the speakers, so I have an inside knowing of what's coming. at this conference, and you'll benefit from any session that you go to. You'll benefit from it if you set aside, if you give yourself the space of being present for any session that you're in, turn off distractions, be there 100%, and you'll benefit from coming to this conference. And I want to thank you for watching this video, watching any of them, and also for coming to the Awaken Stillness Conference. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be our most inspired and outstanding conference yet. And I look forward to seeing you there. And thank you, Jack, for this chance to share this with the world and the audience.
Maureen Muldoon is an author, artist, actress, spiritual teacher, and international community leader. In 2011, she founded Speakeasy Spiritual and Miracles Live 365, two virtual communities that serve an international audience. As a writer and songbird that believes in the miraculous power of storytelling for healing and transformation, Maureen helps people tell their truth to expand their reach, leave their mark, and honor their lives. Maureen's conference session is titled The Joy of Now. Her session will invite us on a sweet journey to the joy of now, learning that by practicing presence and entering the threshold of awakening, we are brought to a state of awareness that welcomes gentle laughter. As we peel back the illusion of duality, it's the happy soul that finds that we give only to ourselves. And so the idea of sacrifice becomes, well, humorous. Maureen will share a sample of stories and stillness practices to promote awareness and awakening.
I want to share what I'm going to present in the conference, and I would love to begin with prayer. So this is a prayer that I use every day. It's called the Miracle Worker Prayer. And on this beautiful, auspicious day of spirits where the veil is thin and we're all holding space for love, we just take a moment to surrender. Just surrender, like I had to do 29 years ago. And we all continue to have to do every single day. Surrender all that we are to all that God would have us be. Surrender our heads, our hearts, our agendas to God's will, trusting that God knows us and loves us and has us and holds us as we make our way to truth, trusting that we will see miracles where we once saw lack and limitations, that we'll be given solutions and grace where we once saw dead ends. We give thanks for this day of miraculous encounters where it's always God meeting God. And may we always remember that this is offered to us, not just for our own good, but that we might be fearless extensions of God's love. And so for this and so much more, we give thanks and we let it be. And together we say, and so it is. Amen. So the way that I get to the joy of now is by surrendering, just a continuation of surrendering. And from that surrender, what usually shows up is gratitude, just this swelling of happiness. And so that's, and because what are we surrendering to? We're surrendering to this love. I mean, it's like we in our hardness, we can sometimes try and swim upstream, but when we surrender and go with the flow, there's this beautiful pace that's available to us at all times, right? And so that's the joy of now, or the now of joy. And when I made that admission 29 years ago, man, like all of us kind of get ordained. We all had those experiences that look like they broke us, but that was the thing that woke us, and so if you're experiencing a place where you feel like you're swimming upstream, where you've got a tough or tender experience going on, just know that is a tenderization. Like there's something beautiful that is there for us. And the best way to approach it is to do our best to surrender. And whatever that means to you, to tap in, to turn in, to get on your knees. I mean, there's some beautiful practices that show us how to surrender. I like to say the mantra, I will to will your will. And A Course in Miracles tells us that happiness is guaranteed. So when I will for God's will, there's no loss. Joy is the inevitable result of gentleness, it says in A Course in Miracles, which is so beautiful because gentleness is one of those rare spices that just doesn't make it into many recipes these days. You know what I mean? It's like we're not gentle with ourselves. We talked about this before we clicked record. Our thoughts can be these inner critics and these, dictators and these distractions and divisions that can take us out of the game. But this is an inside job. The call's coming from inside the house. Another Halloween illusion. So the world is not always gentle either because we're projecting on it. And so gentleness is not a pace that we allow ourselves to move at. I think it's one of the characteristics of a teacher of God that isn't really, it's kind of like the undervalued stock, It's like if we really allowed ourselves to be gentle. Carrie Fisher says that instant gratification is too long. And that's like, that's it. But impatience is something that we've learned and we've been groomed in it with today we have, it's not even movies, it's not even trailers, it's shorts where it's like boom, 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 like they're just firing at us faster than we can absorb and we can't digest all of this. And so we can unlearn impatience. We can unlearn addiction. We can unlearn all of that and we can move into this gentleness. It's funny because I was scheduled for another day to come here with you, Jack. And at the time, my kids were moving out of the house, my two youngest, and there was a lot of emotions around it. Like we're spiritual beings, but we're still having human experiences. And my two children were moving out for the first time. One is 22 and one was 24, and they were both late bloomers. One is on the spectrum and the other one's transgender. So I feel like I went through like 8 adolescences with them. It was very long. So the day that they were moving out, it was just there's just a lot of emotion. And so you were so gracious to say, let's just do it again. Let's just put it on hold. And there's something so beautiful about that because as we said, like it's easy for us to sometimes give grace to others, but it's hard to give grace to ourselves and it's hard to accept grace for ourselves. I shared already that today's the day that I got sober. So when the Holy Spirit moved our recording to this day, it's just such a sweet kiss on the lips from God for me, because it's like, I remember, I don't think that I could have extended these lessons to others if I hadn't had the precursor of getting sober. And this is my personal experience, but like alcohol was not gentle for me. It was a very abusive relationship. And I remember that it was 29 years ago that I, had made this admission. I'm humbling myself to a higher power. And oh my gosh, my life got so better. And then there was a time that I went out and I thought, oh yeah, I'm healed. I'm a holy woman. Now I can drink. And I went to hang out with my sisters and woof, I was wrong. And I woke up that morning really late. And every day I teach A Course in Miracles. And I've been doing it for 11 years now. I mean, I teach it online for 11 years, but I've been teaching it before that. But, and that day I woke up late and I missed the call for the first time. I know. I was so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed, but I was so broken. I was broken to be woken for sure. And I crawled my ass over to my Course in Miracles book and I flip open the lesson that I missed. And it was 3:30 and it said, I will not harm myself again today. Right? I was like, oh my God, like I got it. Like Spirit was like, we need a 2x4 to whack her over the head with, like, get in there, like make it hurt. So that she gets it. So we get to practice, we get to practice and we get to not just discuss and discover, because you and I can discuss and discover all day and night, right? But what we get to do is we get to apply and embody. So when you gave me the grace the other day, that was an application. That was a beautiful application. When I gave myself the grace, it's a beautiful application. So we get to discuss, we get to discover, but we also get to apply and embody. And that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where we actually find out if our knives can cut the bread. That's the place that we get to apply it. And when we get to apply it, at first, most people will say, I don't want to apply it. I just want to discuss and discover. I just want to stay at that realm. And it's like, no, you get to build this bridge back to yourself. So it's a practice, but we can do it. We can get still We can practice the presence. We can step off this treadmill of busyness and distraction. We can lay down the hustle, and we can begin to entertain this holy instant. This holy instant leads us to the spectacular now, which is a movie I actually just watched last night, which is wonderful. But I love those words together, the spectacular now, because that's what it feels like for me. And learning how to lean into serenity, it does not feel to me like that is the final destination. It actually feels like it is the eternal extension. And that's the good news, because I think that when we lean into peace, we don't just end up in peace, then we fall into love, and then we find happiness. And many think or believe that stillness brings us to stagnation, or, it just leaves us at this place that's the destination. But again, the Course says a happy outcome is guaranteed to all who court gentleness. And so when we become still, and as we become still, and as we get present, what actually arises, the experience is, I don't know about you, Jack, but this is the experience for me, is far from static. It's actually so alive. It's so dynamic, and it's engaging, and it's alert, and it's aware. It's this beautiful awareness that I could not access from my sleeping self. And this external exchange and this eternal exchange is going on between you and me, between you and the trees, between me and I've got this beautiful white pine outside my window, and it's just gorgeous. And I feel like we have this holy communion all the time, and it's where creativity flows like breath, like this beautiful example that we have of inhaling and exhaling, of giving out and taking in. And like you and I shared earlier, like the taking in can sometimes be, but the giving out. And the funny thing is, at least what I think is funny, and I think too much is funny, I think everything is funny, is that when we seek stillness, it doesn't mean that we actually get still. You don't get still unless you die. I mean, that body is still, but even in my most still moments, I'm not still. What we do is we get still enough. That's what we do. We get still enough to touch the hem of our own divinity and access that vibration of love's presence. So stillness shouldn't be a scary space. Stillness actually takes us to this ecstasy, and this awareness takes us to this awe. And I love that awareness takes us to awe. And you will know that you are present when you begin to experience awe. And awe is not something that's reserved for God. It's reserved for every breath that you live. We can live in the eternal awe. So in this moment, we discover that true presence is not actually still. It bristles, it sparkles, it dances, it carries so much vibration and so much radiance. And this discovery is the encapsulation of joy. Now, it makes sense to me because, look at you, you gorgeous morsel of love. Why wouldn't God want a happy calling card? Do you know what I mean? What are all these sober souls walking around with, learning it from their neck up? We're supposed to rejoice and be glad. And we do access that through stillness, for sure, through stillness and through forgiveness and through clearing out the barbed wires and the barnacles and the vampires and all the energy that has sought to, that we have used to distract ourselves from our brilliance. And here's the other thing that I kind of love, is that just getting still, my getting still doesn't mean that God gets still, God's word is active. It moves across the water. That's kind of beautiful to recognize that. It's a delightful discovery. A happy outcome is really guaranteed, because this essence of God is alive. It's vibrant, it's in motion, it's moving, it's not stagnant, it's not stale, it's not stuck, not staccato. Maybe it's staccato sometimes, but it flows. And so we each get to make this journey. I can, you can kind of feel into it by hearing people speak of it, but each of us get to make the journey. I can't take you there. Only you can take yourself there. And it's a practice, which is a word that I think is crazy that it's a practice. It seems insane to me because it's like, teaching a fish how to swim. Why do we got to practice what we already are? You know what I mean? You're a fish, you're swimming, you forgot that you're a fish. and that you're swimming, and instead you think you're a man and you think you're efforting. And that's kind of funny. So I forgive the word practice. You know, when I think of practice, I think I'm going to go practice the piano because I'm learning the piano right now. And I often tell people, like, when you get to learn something new and you think of the word practice, you think like a kid will play. A kid will play the piano all day and night, but if you tell him he's got to practice, he'll say no. You know what I mean? So maybe you just want to continue to invite yourself to play with these concepts. You know, play with meditation and play with affirmative prayer and play with forgiveness. So we get to practice the presence, and that's what this little offering will be during this time of our gathering at the conference, so that we can learn to trust the now and to release the past and to turn into the present and allow ourselves to be in this breath, this beautiful breath that really does offer us everything. It's funny to think of this breath in this moment. If you could begin to think and feel into this breath and slow down to the place where you imagine that this is the first breath you ever took. Imagine that, if this was the first breath that you ever took. So let's just be here in this moment, breathing these breaths as if they were the first waves that ever entered our consciousness of breath. And then take in the sounds of your room. And be here in that slow roll of the moment as you're breathing and you're taking in and entertaining this pace of peace. And maybe even if you want to, put your hand on your heart and continue to take those breaths. And even if you like, you can even rock yourself if you're listening to this as a holiday, as a Halloween treat to yourself. Like, bring yourself to the gentleness of this moment. You have a little trick-or-treater inside of you who just wants some love, who just wants some sweetness. And if in this giving of sweetness to yourself, if emotion should come as we exit the harbor of our intellect and into the experience of our felt Holy Communion, anchor yourself by just looking around your room. You're looking like, just like the first lessons tell us, take in the experience and look around your room as if this is the first time you're experiencing sight. Isn't that a fun thing to play with? And just begin to listen. Little teeny actions can anchor us into the now. And if you find yourself holding your heart and rocking and looking around your room, and if a judgment should come in, like, oh, I should have made my bed, or geez, my coffee's cold, or a picture of somebody that, you know, tugs on your heart, just notice the emotion and see if you can stay. Row your boat gently down the stream. Stay in this moment. Give up your thinking about it. Let's see if you can slip past the confines of your thinking and just begin to get soft and practice and play with that softness, and see if you can experience yourself as if you're experiencing yourself for the first time. Your capital S self for the first time. Your holy self. And go gently with this moment and let yourself melt like a sugar cube into the hot tea of God. Just feel yourself melting.
Kavi Jezi Hakaday, also known as Kavi G, is a prolific philosopher poet, musician, and spiritual teacher whose transformative poems resonate with readers around the world. As co-spiritual director of the Amoda Ma Foundation, Kavi has been immersed in a field of unconditional love, having supported Amoda Ma's teachings in a practical way since 2019. Nowadays, Kavi offers one-to-one sessions and public meetings as part of the Amoda Ma teachings. Kavi's conference session is titled Finding Presence and Grace in Turbulent Times. His session will invite us to recognize that even in times of turbulence, there is an undercurrent of grace and presence. Despite the phenomena of the world, true freedom lies in recognizing that we arise from an ocean of being.
I loved what Bill said, because what I speak to is actually being in the world. that's where the juice really is, and that's where the challenge really is for us to discover a deeper equanimity and union within ourselves in the midst of the turbulence of the world, not the theoretical turbulence, but actually the nitty gritty of relationship, of trouble in politics, of all of these kind of things. And it's not easy because the world is tenacious and the world of mind is tenacious. So I kind of speak to, in a way, the beauty that is available to us, even in the midst of difficult times. And I would say that, my sessions, as they have been before, are very much kind of trying to get into the grace at the heart of us, the grace in the deep, in the silence, in the stillness. So, however that manifests in the 90 minutes that we have in our session, I'll be speaking to that and inviting the inquiry into that in real time, I hope. So, having said that, I know our time is short and I can gabble on and I'm trying not to. But Jack, let me. I wrote a poem, it's sort of yesterday, I think, there's such as it is. And this kind of describes, I guess, what we'll be speaking to. It's called There Is a Grace. There is a grace inside us, deep in the heart, in the soul. We touch it in silence and presence, in stillness and in deep intimacy with our own experience. But to court this grace, we must dive in through the many layers of self, through the darkness and the shadow, through the thick layers of belief, through perception and thought, and beyond mind itself. We are invited to let go of all that is illusory, to fall out of the world and into the unknown. It sounds scary to the self, but this is not a journey of the self. It is a journey to let go of the self. With persistence, surrender, and the courage of a warrior, we fall into the arms of eternity, the unknown, the silence, and the stillness of the divine. And there we may know grace, and it will be nameless and indescribable and beautiful, and we will know it as home. So in many ways, that kind of encapsulates what we'll be speaking to. I find that the poetry, it was never my intention to become a poet. I've always had an artistic temperament and, as a musician. But I guess the journey over the last, particularly 20 years with Amoda Ma has kind of driven me mad enough within myself to turn me into some kind of mystic poet. And I had to give voice to the love that I've touched. And I found that the language or the fragrance of poetry, I'm not really a poet, these are just words that are hung together somehow, you know, but there's something about it that has the capacity to bypass the mind that seeks to understand what awakening is. And I don't particularly, I'm not that good and I'm not an expert at speaking to the mind that seeks to understand. And I found that poetry can somehow wiggle into the gaps, through the cracks in us. And everybody haven't met anybody yet who hasn't got a crack in them. And the poetry is, it gets in there. And I'm not interested in the poetry. I'm interested in the crack. I'm interested in the cracks in us because that is where the light shines. That is where the beauty is. That is where the healing is. And that healing is not just the healing of the self, it's a healing that returns us somehow to this grace of union that I think is available right here, right now. You know, it's not somewhere up in the future. It's kind of, if you taste it. I wrote another thing. Whatever strategies have been employed to get through life and to protect the self will inevitably come undone if awakening to the truth of you is courted with total devotion. And it's the last line. It's the last line that speaks to me. It's the last line that says what I what I bring, what I want to encourage. And that was my path. And we all speak to our own path. All of the teachers, you listen to them all, they're all talking, describing their own path. Let's face it, really. And so this was the path for me, a total devotion, because I think it was Rumi who said something about half-heartedness doesn't lead to the palace of the majesty of something. I'm very clumsy about that, but it's the same thing. A totality. You give yourself to it because the mind is capricious, tenacious, and it comes around, and I understand that. And there we are in the safety zone. And there's something about having to fall out of the safety zone, the mental safety zone that says, yes, I want awakening, but I won't go there. I won't go to that place. I won't really go to the unknown. And we work with a lot of people who get to seemingly the edge of the abyss kind of thing. And there you can hang. I mean, it's okay. You can hang there for years. It doesn't really matter because it's all okay anyway. But there's something about knowing, if you like, that abyss is a little bit of a trickster, you know, it's a little bit tricky. So that's kind of, in a way, the fragrance of what I'm going to speak to in my session somehow.
Mm. 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 Well, wow. I mean, we spoke about this a little bit before we went live about, I very much so resonate with, you could say maybe the formats and the stylings in which your practice and your teachings take as a musician and songwriter myself. And I adore and resonate with what you say about it's not about the poetry, it's about the cracks. And poetry has a way of slipping through the cracks. And I was imagining water, of course, doing that and slipping through. And that is absolutely my experience when I write music. I mean, I'm writing lyrics about this. It's about that. Like what else would it be about? Um, but you mentioned totality of devotion. Are there reminders that there is a total devotion, or are reminders to one's being no longer needed if you have full total devotion?
You mean like other practices and other things, still things to do?
Yeah, like I'll give you an example. In my case, I use music to remind myself. I create, songs that have the messages that I need to remember for 6 months later when I had a particular insight. I record that insight and then listen to it and listen to it and listen to it. Um, do you have an understanding of an analog to that?
Well, I think you that there's no, I don't speak to formulaic kind of ways. I
Sure.
think whatever your soul gravitates towards, give yourself to that. As a musician, your soul gravitates to that. It was like Rumi, do whatever you can, do whatever the soul calls. If you need to dance, dance. If you need to tear something open of yourself, then you must do that. Yeah, because in a way, I've discovered for myself that certainly for my, you know, a gradual awakening over a long period of time was that it was pretty wild. You know, I had a lot of stuff to clear. I had a lot of, you know, deeply embedded beliefs, conditions, grievances, arguments, resistance, all of these factors, all of these, you know, qualities within myself that I actually took a lot of guts, patience, surrender, meditation, catharsis, everything like that. And beauty, of course, inherent in that is beauty. But there was no single thing that carried me to, you know, into the dissolvement. But the one thing that did carry me through all of the catharsis and the meditation, I was never hooked on a destination. I had never had that idea of a destination back then. I was too busy tearing off what was uncomfortable, or what was difficult, or was what was impeding my own sense of freedom. But by and by, I realized actually it depends on how much I give of myself to it. If I'm prepared to stay here, no matter what, no matter what comes at me, very much in that sense, like, you know, Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree and said pretty much let's call it in contemporary terms, I'm not budging until something happens. I'm not moving from here until something opens or something happens. What? I don't know. But I know that it's down, if there is a part of us that has will, self-will, it's not that will, it's the will to stay even when the storm comes, even when the confusion is there, even when doubt comes along. It's the willingness to stay and stay and stay. And something about the universe hears that, hears the call to one's totality, says, okay, if you want that, then we're going to deliver it to you. And it will throw up either quickly or over a long period of time, usually over time. Every Mara, every resistance, every obstacle, every grievance, every hidden belief, everything that you've got, every strategy that you might have held on to in order to somehow keep the world, either the world at bay or to protect oneself from oneself in a way, from the difficult feelings and all that. So totality is the name of the game in whatever you do. That's the key is not totality as a theory. The thing is, in a way, totality is just being here as present as possible and as open as possible to the capacity that we can. No more than that, only to the capacity that we can. And then when we fall out of that place or get distracted or become reactive again, well, that's okay. Just notice and then return with the totality. You can only do what you can do. You can only show up with what you can show up with. Everything else becomes a hair shirt that we start beating ourselves with. Oh, I didn't get it right this time, but next time I will. That is not where my focus is. My focus is if we're here now, and in this session, that here now, I'm total with you here now, and I hope that you're total with me here now. And this is a good moment. But equally, we could both go off this Zoom call. There could be trouble. Yeah, there could be relational trouble or world trouble or something. Can we be total in that? When the trouble rises up from inside us, can we be total with that? So in our session that we do, you know, at the conference, it'll be very much inviting, seducing, courting people to come along and leave some of the theoretical stuff behind and let's just show up.
We really hope you'll join us at the Awaken Stillness conference. It'll be from November 8th to 10th for more direct experience teaching. And you can register for free at purepresenceconferences.com.